And here we are, ladies and gentlemen, geeks, nerds, dweebs, whatever you want to call yourself. We are here for another epic throwdown in nerd fights. And we've got two particular well-versed nerds to battle it out today. We've got the electric Ethan Klein and Rubear Amaru Moses here to fight it out. You've seen them all over the place, and now you're going to see how nerdy they can get, how deep they can get into this. I am Dr. Spichemin, the spaceman, Alan Shepard, here to host this battle, but I can't do it by myself. Right over here, I've got Chris Diaz. Chris, how you doing tonight?
Doing good. Happy seeing my first match of this category.
Awesome. Excellent. And the man, the myth, the legend right over there, Mr. Payne. How you doing, Mr. Payne?
I'm feeling pretty good. It's a nice, beautiful, sunny day out for me, and I'm looking forward to hear a lot, and I mean a lot of geek and nerd talk.
Oh, and I'm sure you will. All right. So what we've got is we've got 4 questions here, and we're going to hear debates. We're going to hear battles. These two gentlemen battle it out. They've got their opening, which I believe is 90 seconds. 90 seconds on the clock to tell us their choice, and then a 5-minute debate round. And during the 5-minute debate round, should I feel they're getting a little too heated or, about to come to blows, I will have to give a timeout. One of the rules is a timeout. That shouldn't happen. I don't want to see it happen. I don't want it to happen. We want clean nerd battles tonight. But if I got to do it, I will pull this car over. And we'll do that timeout if we need. And then they wrap it on up individually with 60 seconds on the clock. And I'm going to ask Ryan, can you be our time master tonight?
Yep.
Look at that.
I got it all ready to go.
The man, the myth, the legend. Perfect. He prevails. All right. Excellent. So we will do that. And then should it come to it, we've got the speed round. The speed round. Something tells me we might be seeing the speed round, but I could be wrong. I've been wrong before, but we'll see what happens tonight. All right. So I'm going to ask Mr. Klein, are you ready? Oh, yes, Ryan.
Oh, absolutely.
Just so you know, the players do have an option for the min extension in their closing.
Yes. Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, the 1-minute extension, should they need to do that, they will bring that to the front. Just let us know before you start speaking that you're going to use your minute extension should you do so. And if you're going to concede your time, please let us know by saying, and I'll concede the rest of my time so we don't sit here and watch our watches that no one ever wears anymore. You might have one, who knows? But we want to make sure we know that you're going to not use the time should you choose not to do that. All right. So if everyone's ready, Mr. Klein said he's ready. Amaru, how you feeling? You ready?
I'm good. I'm just mesmerized, but how do you know which way to point without any problem? So
a lot of practice.
And just lastly, Ethan, if you're cool with it, Ryan, can you just let us know when we got the 1 minute left for that 5 minutes?
Yeah.
No problem. I can definitely do that.
Perfect.
Cool. Excellent. All right. If we are ready, we shall begin. All right. And this first question is from Middle Earth. And who was that suggestion as far as bringing their strength? So Maru, we're going to start with you. You're going to be the first to go with Middle Earth. And the question is, which fellowship member should have never joined in the first place? He or she should have never been there, no matter what. Who is that individual? And Amaru, the 90 seconds begin for you. Your opener when you begin talking.
Every member of the fellowship was helpful to the ultimate success of the mission in one way or another. But there is only one member of that team who didn't bring any added value that wasn't already present in the team somewhere else, and that is Gimli. Gimli is a skilled fighter, but as a fighter, his skill is surpassed by 4 other members of the fellowship. He's short, so everyone is held up by him when he's running. He has to be held up, helped up to horses. He has to be tossed, even though he doesn't like to be tossed. He's not short enough to go unnoticed like the hobbits. And he's the only member whose race does not show up anywhere else in the rest of the mission. He's loud, he's selfish. The dwarves are unliked by a lot of different people. And he truly was the only reason, the biggest reason why in Moria they didn't go unnoticed. If he hadn't run off to go see what happened to Balin, they would have kept it moving. They would have gotten through. Gandalf would still be alive. And really, even if you wanted to put it in there that he needed to be there to get the dwarves, Gandalf would have been their liaison. He knew Balin from the Erebor mission. So you have so many people on that fellowship who brought something to it. Gimli is the only one who didn't bring anything unique and nothing added that somebody else didn't bring themselves. That's why Gimli should have never been there in the first place.
Wow. Whew. All right. So a very controversial choice. Talking about tossing Gimli out. He don't like to be tossed, but he about to be tossed out, perhaps. All right. Interesting choice. Okay. Mr. Klein, we will have your choice when you begin.
So my choice for who should have never been in the Fellowship, who should not have been a part of this from the start, to me, it is clear and obvious, and it is Boromir. To me, the biggest part of the Fellowship, what makes the Fellowship so strong and so important, it's not, are you a good fighter? That is not the number one thing to be a part of this team. It is what's inside of you. It's the heart that you bring to the team. The Fellowship is this group of different people. The point is that there was never a group in the history of their world, of Middle Earth, that brought together all of the different races. Boromir is not the only man to be a part of this group. Obviously, Aragorn is there, so he checks that off the list. So he's coming in and he's not bringing that extra diversity. He's not bringing that heart to the group that all of these other people bring. He is there because he doesn't trust the other people. He does not show the humility to step aside and say, yes, you guys can do this. He feels that in some way it is his birthright that he has to do this, and that, as we see, it leads him down a path of jealousy. It leads him down a path of deceit towards other people in the group, and ultimately it costs him his own life and derails a part of the mission that he is a part of until he does die, because he does fall prey to the temptation of the ring in ways that other characters do not. So Boromir should have never been there.
Wow. All right. So we either got to toss out a dwarf or be bored by Boromir. Wow. Here we go. All right, you gentlemen, 5 minutes. Duke it out.
All right. So first off, you said that Boromir didn't bring anything but fighting, and he didn't have any heart. Did you see the relationship he had with Merry and Pippin? He's the one who helped them learn to fight. The laughter that they had with him before the bird fights came through. He brought that heart. And secondly, you mentioned that there was another man who was there to represent men. The only problem is he only represented the Rangers. You cannot have that mission without a major race of men, either Rohan or Gondor, and it's got to be Gondor, because Gondor is right across the street from Mordor. There's no way in the world that nobody from Gondor wasn't going to be there. You either had to cross Gondor to get to Mordor, somebody was going to find him. That's how Faramir found them. There is no way that he wasn't going to be there. And that jealousy that you talked about, right? That jealousy and the fact that he died, that jealousy needed to happen. It needed to happen at some point with somebody who was strong enough to see, after he went for that ring, the error of his ways, and then end up be the reason that they were able to keep moving forward with the Horn of Gondor Hall and dying to allow Sam and Frodo to keep it moving. He was needed to be there, and if he wasn't there, a lot more crap would have gone down worse for Sam and Frodo.
So a couple of things. I mean, you said that the mission would not have been able to succeed without someone representing who he represents, the mission does eventually succeed without him because he dies, and the mission still goes on without him, and they do end up succeeding by accomplishing their goal at the end of the entire story. The other thing there too is, yes, Aragorn and Boromir are from two sects of man, but at least once Boromir is out of the picture, man is still represented in this group that is supposed to represent diversity. If you take Gimli out of the group, you literally take all of an entire race out of the group. He provides that. There are no other dwarves to be had there. When he is there, he gives the group that final piece that they need, that final race that they need to complete their group. And yes, from a story perspective, if you were writing this story down as Tolkien did, absolutely. So my next point after that was that I agree with you from a story perspective. If we're just looking at this, watching a movie, yes, the jealousy does push the story along in a way. But in terms of making a unified group, his jealousy almost costs them their mission. And at the greater sake of their mission, it ends up costing him his life, because he did fall to that temptation in a way that the other characters didn't or wouldn't. And with what they brought in, especially Gimli wouldn't fall to that, because he doesn't want to be tossed, but at the end of the day, he has the humility to be tossed because they need him to do that to win a battle.
He has the humility to be tossed because he went through everything beforehand, and everything that he went through with in the relationship with Legolas to get to that point. And that same way that happens is the same reason why the jealousy that came up, the want for him to take the ring, needed to happen with him. If you didn't have him, you would have had Faramir. And Faramir would not be strong enough to do anything but what his father said. And once Frodo and Sam went past Gondor, they would have to deal with both Boromir and Denethor at the same time. And there is no way that ring is getting past Gondor when both of them are there at the same time, because Boromir died. Because Faramir finds out Boromir died because he tried to take the ring and then realized his mistake. Faramir had the strength to be able to say, nah, you can get past Gondor. That death, that jealousy needed to be from somebody who was strong enough to make sure they can go past that. If somebody else who wasn't that strong got it, the ring would have been gone. And you mentioned the fact that you needed somebody from the dwarves to represent. It didn't, because they're nowhere else to be found. Not a single place. So you really don't need the dwarves because they don't show up.
I think that actually shows even more so that you needed Gimli to be a part of a group, because they were such a forgotten race. The point of this is that it's one ring to rule them all. It's one above everything. And this fellowship is a group of all of us from all different backgrounds, even backgrounds that shouldn't get along. Obviously, at the beginning, Gimli does not want to befriend Legolas, but we see the growth that the group brings him because he does bring something to the group. He does enter into the group in that way, and he's willing to put aside their differences to grow and to be a part of what the most important thing is, and that's the fellowship.
So there we had our two main bulk of our arguments here. The cases have been presented. So we're to you, Ryan. I'm gonna come back to you, and we're gonna go to Chris. Chris, what do you think? Where did your brain get busted too?
So this was an interesting fight, and especially for me, a lot of Ethan. I kind of had to get the point to Ethan at the end, though, because I think he hit more hard on like literally was important, and Amaru spent more time talking about defending Boromir rather than counting point back at his Ethan argument for Gimli, and I think one thing that maybe I wish somebody, and I think Amaru should have brought it up, and I think that maybe give it to Ethan was that. And Amaru had mentioned that Boromir sacrificed his life for Pippin and Merry, and that's the point of it. I think Amaru would have got the point. But since that wasn't brought up at all, that Ethan won a point for me at the end.
All right, so that's 1 point for Ethan. How's your brain, Ryan?
My brain is back to normal. My brain's back. Okay.
All right.
Okay, here it is. I shared the same sentiments as Chris, but I went the opposite by going to Amaru. Amaru did attack Gimli on a couple of points, mainly because out of the whole race of dwarves, you only see Gimli. You see a couple of dwarves with Gimli in the Fellowship, but then afterward, he's the only dwarf throughout the entire movies. And for a movie that Ethan said that this is about, it's all about all versus the one we rule them all, and it's about everyone. The fact that there was no dwarves in Return of the King for the final battle says a lot, and the fact that Gimli's the only one there does say a lot. And Amaru did some good points that if Boromir wasn't a part of the Fellowship and that Frodo or Sam made their way to Gondor or encountered men, there was no way that ring was going to leave Gondor, especially with Denethor, who was this power mad steward. So Amaru gets the point because he made not only just some good choices, not only a good attack, but he made some good what ifs as well. Like, okay, let's say Boromir wasn't here. This would happen.
All right. So we got 1 point for Ethan and 1 point for Amaru. So you're going to make me be the Smeagol and be the bad guy and have to make the deciding vote here, which is not fair. But both great arguments. And I second what both but Chris and Ryan said about especially making the good points. I love, Ethan, that you brought in the whole thematic aspect of the One Ring to rule everyone by you had to have everybody represented. So even though there were no more dwarves in the rest of the films or the rest of the book, there was the one represented that needed to be there. But Amaru, I think, was a strong point with, there's never any of them anywhere else. Why this one guy, and what really did he bring to it that wasn't brought by the other members? So by the slightest of margins, I'm going to give it to Amaru. So Amaru has the first point of the evening. All right, but a great question, and the rest of these questions are going to be just as good. We got two great battlers right here. All right, so question number 2, gentlemen, okay, is in the realm of DC. And I love this question. And just to show I'm not biased, I didn't pick the question, but I do love it. Which episode of the Justice League animated series is the best one? So which episode of the Justice League animated series is the best, according to you gentlemen? And since Maru started the last one, Mr. Ethan, you're going to begin this one. Your 90 seconds begins when you do.
Yeah, so question of what is the single best episode in the Justice League animated series? I went with what amounts to the season 1 finale, the Savage Time Part 3. And the reason I picked this is because as great as this show was, for its time, this was amazing. It gave us everything that we could ask for out of a Justice League animated show. For a majority of the show, it does just kind of give us what we expect, right? It's kind of some recycled stories from the old comics or past cartoons, things like that. What this gives us, it's a 3-parter, but specifically part 3 here, we get to see the Justice League out of their own time. We get to see the Justice League step in to something new. They're not just in Gotham or Metropolis. It's a whole nother world. It's World War II, but what if Savage went back in time and overthrew Hitler, and then he's even worse than Hitler, right? And so we get to see all of the aspects of this team with the added drama of being back in the 40s and trying to be inserted into World War II. And what does that give us? What do these powers give us? And you get to see kind of that, like in the Wonder Woman film that came out where she was in World War I. And what was so great about that was this super powered aspect in this world where we don't get to see that, but now we get to see the entire Justice League do it in this animated format, fighting against Savage in just this crazy time. And I think it's just perfect the way that we get to see that dynamic play out in this episode.
All right. So going to the Savage, we've heard Ethan, his opening for this particular question. Now we're going to move on to Amaru whenever you're ready, sir.
What I loved about Justice League is that it's a show that didn't pander to children as if they were unintelligent. It was one that had adult situations, brought a lot of depth to character, along with great humor, action, and it highlighted a lot of the best of each individual superhero to be entertaining for kids. So very early on, I had a winner. I had a winner from very early on into the season up until the very last episode, and that's why I chose Starcross Part 3, basically the series finale of Justice League before going into Unlimited, because everything I mentioned about Justice League is brought to its height in that episode. There's an invasion from aliens. We've seen that before, but this time it actually feels threatening. There's standout moments for a lot of the Justice League, especially when Batman does his hero moment, trying to crash and save everybody, but also showing his untrusting ways of the Thanagarians. We also see the ultimate strength of Jon Stewart when his ring is taken, but he's still trying to fight. But the big climax of the entire episode and a lot of the entire season is the triangle and the double cross of Hawkgirl. Her double cross of the team and double cross of the Thanagarians really show the personal and moral sacrifices each of these characters are willing to make, and even makes that love triangle worth it. The biggest part that shows how everything works in this is when Diana sees Hawkgirl trapped, he looks at her and says, "I should leave you here to burn," but still cuts her down. That emotional part showed you how satisfying this series finale is.
Just within the wire. Just
within the wire. Well, they run into time all the way. No conceding times here. All right. So we've heard each episode and the moments they're in, that the reason they chose them. So now let's hear you guys duke it out. All right, your 5 minutes starts when the first person starts talking.
Yeah, so I mean, I would say, you made a great point there that the show didn't pander to children as if it was, 5 and 6 year olds watching this show. It really is a show made for everyone that's just a fan of the team. And I think something that really comes through in that way with this arc with Savage is just how vicious he is. They don't pull any punches with his character. They don't take a frightening villain from the comics and tone him down to make it easier. I mean, he usurps Hitler, right? So you have to be pretty bad to do that. And they lean into the fact that he is just a no-nonsense. He is here to dominate the world, not take over the world, dominate everyone in it and be their ruler. And he goes after the Justice League in a way that a lot of other villains throughout the series don't, especially an overarching alien invasion, right? This is one man driven just by hate and by pure evil inside of him. And that's just a kind of villain arc we don't see throughout the rest of the show.
I really like the point you bring up that no show is as good. Every show is only as good as its villain. And you also mentioned that having Savage in there really brings something different. The problem with that is that I have seen Savage go back in time so many times. And you talk about how much of a vicious villain and how great of a villain Savage is. That is true. But in this episode, I don't remember much of what he did. So much so, I don't remember how Savage was. So much so, the only thing I remember from that episode is that once he gets defeated, the Germans go back to Hitler with no hesitation. No, nothing. They go back to, well, Savage is gone. Who's going to lead us? Oh, I know exactly who we're going to go to. Hitler's right back there with nothing from that. When it comes to the Thanagarians, yes, they're an invasion, but really it's tied down to one person, and that's Rotalik and his triangle with Hawkgirl and Jon Stewart. And it's not, and they're threatening because they go into martial law. But more so, what hits you is the fact that he is also double crossed by somebody he loves. And it's really encompasses that is that there's the scene with Crow and Hawkgirl when Hawkgirl is trapped and Crow is telling her, look, I don't care about your infidelities. I don't care about you double-crossed us. I just need you to tell me that you love me and not him. And I am good with that. And that hits you so hard that when the fight between Green Lantern and him happens afterwards, it is so much more impactful. Not only is there great action in Starcross Part 3, but there's great emotion. And when Hawkgirl ends up leaving as the series finale to Justice League, it is the perfect bow emotionally to leave everybody like, wait, no, are we done? What's going on? And it also helps us set up for like when Ultimate does come, what happens going there. So Savage is vicious, but I've seen him before. The triangle mixed and the emotion mixed with the action in Star-Crossed Pass 3, nothing beats that in your episode.
So what my episode brings and what I need in my superhero stories is stakes. And at the end of the day, when an alien invasion comes to Earth, like an alien invasion has come to Earth so many other times in even Justice League itself, at the end of the day, deep down, you know, okay, well, obviously this show is not going to end with the Earth blowing up. You know, the aliens aren't going to kill everyone on Earth and move on. And I'm not saying that you think that Savage is going to win, but the question that you always have on your mind in this when we're dealing with time travel is, what are the ramifications? Yes, they can beat Savage, but are they actually going to be able to get their world back the way that they had their world? And that is a question right up until the very end. You said that the Germans were willing to just go back to Hitler right after Savage was defeated. Of course they were. I mean, they are minions. They're henchmen. They need a leader. What Savage was able to do was come in and take out the leader they had already followed because he was so much more vicious. This wasn't just war tactics. This was, I'm going to kill everybody in front of me, and I do not care. I don't even care what's left, as long as what's left is mine. And at the end of the day, the question always stood, even if they stop him now, this is in the 40s. What's the world going to look like when they go back to the 2000s? And those are stakes that felt much more real to me than, okay, here's an alien invasion. We know the aliens aren't going to ultimately win. Yes, Hawk Girl moves on, but also at the end of the day, I don't come to Justice League on a cartoon series for the romance. I come for the story, the struggle of good versus evil and how that will play out. And to me, Star-Crossed, at the end of the day, the conclusion felt like the conclusion of a lot of other storylines.
Time, gentlemen, time.
All right. Wow. Two very interesting, intriguing arguments, intriguing picks. It might be all about how you wrap them up, gentlemen. And you're going to have 60 seconds to do it. Since we started with Ethan, we're going to start our 60-second closer with Amaru. When you're ready, sir.
Ethan talked about stakes. Stakes in terms of the world, stakes in terms of the show. And he's right. While watching both Star-Crossed and Savage Time, I knew Justice League was going to win. I didn't think anybody was on the Thanos level at the end of Infinity War just yet. Those stakes weren't there. If you really want to say it for either show, the stakes in Star-Crossed Part 3 was what was going to happen with the Justice League because Hot Girl had double-crossed everybody. And it's that emotional weight mixed with the, I know they're going to win, but what about these overall stakes as well that makes it hit so much harder? And in terms of Savage, since we're talking about the whole series, I think I can bring this up in terms of Savage didn't care what was going on as long as he had his. But you see in here after, he had everything and he was alone by himself and ultimately sent Superman back in time to make sure he wasn't there on his own anymore. That whole argument right there is mute because of a future episode.
All right. Using every second of his 60 right there. All right. Ethan, sir, it is up to you to give us your closing when you're ready.
Closing out the entire series with a story that is focused on Hawk Girl is a bold choice. I'll give them that, but I don't necessarily think it was the right choice. Hawk Girl is not what we come to Justice League for. Justice League is about the Trinity. It's about Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. And Savage Time, specifically, obviously the third part, but that entire story arc, central, it is Batman. Batman going back, how do I do this? How do I lead this team back in time to fight this off and get back to the world that we once knew? And I want to see Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman first and foremost at the forefront. At the end of the day, an interesting side story would be for Hawk Girl to have a love triangle. Yes, we all know about that, but that is not why I turn on Justice League. And for them to close out the series that way takes away from the main characters and the main reason why I come to the show, and that is the Trinity. And for me personally, it is Batman, and we get that Batman-led story in Savage Time. We get side characters on a side love story in Star-Crossed.
Time.
Wow. All right. Using every second of his 60. Whoa. All right. Very interesting and compelling arguments here. Very bold choices both. We're gonna start with Chris.
I
sorry.
do want to come to a quick fact check here.
Yep.
I did pull up both of the episodes these guys were talking about just so I can do a fact check. And I look at the fact check. Batman, during his closing, he said Batman went back in time with them. Batman did not. It was Superman who went back in time. Batman was the one who was affected by the time change. So he was the only Justice League member not to go into the past.
All right.
This is a
Thank
fact
you for that
check.
fact check. Yep, just a fact check. Yep. Okay. All right. Chris, what say you, sir?
So when listening to both arguments, both good arguments by the way, so I've seen some episodes. But I thought in the end of the day, my point goes to Amaru because he mentioned the moment of the show. He mentioned what the episode was about. He focused on all the characters. He didn't focus on the villain, but I think he spent too much time focusing on Savage that talked about moment of the episode, highlight the episode. And with my fact check there, that made my point home. The Marvin passion what drove me to go for him at the end because he gave me the highlight, he gave me the reason why, and he had counter attack against East in the end, won over it. So my point goes to Marvin because it's the question itself, not what the best melody of the series is or what the best plot of the series. It's the best episode.
Gotcha.
So you can do everything.
All right. So 1 point for Amaru here. And then I'll go to me. Both these arguments are very compelling, and I've seen every single episode of all of the Justice League, Superman, Batman, all of the episodes of all this stuff. So I'm a huge fan of this. And what the episodes individually bring to them has to be something unique because it's part of, yes, it's part of a continuing story, but what makes this episode special? What makes me want to be invested into it? And I think Ethan did that for me a little bit more with the actual ramifications of the time travel and the savagery of the villain. And when we do turn into this, I want to know about my three main characters. Of course, the whole Justice League as a whole is important, but I want to know about my three, the Trinity, and a good villain. I gotta have a good villain, and a good villain. Even if he's been in multiple episodes, if it's one time to shine, it's his one time to shine. I want to see it why. And that episode really kind of brought home why he was such an effective villain and the stakes that were raised. So I give my point to Ethan. So that means, Mr. Payne, you gonna be the tiebreaker this time, sir.
Okay. No pressure. And Alan, like you, I have watched every episode. Just like I grew up with this show. I fact checked just so I can remain impartial. And trust me, that didn't factor into the. These guys hit each other back and forth here. Amaru laid out great examples. He's able to nail every subplot with passion. Ethan, while you did do a good job defending the villain, I thought there were some points of Amaru brought up that you definitely could have countered with wartime. When Amaru brought up that you find out how strong John is without that ring, you could have immediately countered by saying throughout World War II, the League thought he was killed in action, he was powerless joining the Marine Corps, and he was one of the only Leaguers who actually fight Vandal Savage before the plane went down. But at the end, your defense is still held up strong against him. But it was towards the closing when both you were bringing up, Ethan, when you said, I do definitely went into Justice League. Yeah, we want to watch the Trinity. But the fact that they did choose to have Hawkgirl as the main focus, the main character-driven story in that finale shows you exactly that. The fact that Amaru was saying that there was so much going against Hawkgirl. She double crosses not only the League, she double crosses John Stewart, she double crosses the planet that she's come to defend, and then she double crosses the Thanagarians. You're seeing so much pressure and everything on her leading up to the last episode, and then her leaving is a good to when she is brought back. And as much as I will always keep watching the Trinity, the fact that Justice League is able to make me care about the other characters like John Stewart Green Lantern, like Martian Manhunter, like Hawkgirl, it slightly gives Amaru the edge, just slightly. This is a damn close battle, honestly. But Amaru gives the edge just by a nose.
All right, so there you have it. We've got Amaru with the ultimate point. which gives him the second ultimate point in this battle. Man, and right, these are hard choices for us judges. You know, I never thought I'd feel sorry for the judges, but I feel sorry for the judges on this one because these guys, they came to play, both of them.
It's called nerd fight for a reason, man. It's called nerd fight for a reason.
All right, so with that, we're going to move on to our third question. Okay, we're going to move to the opposite end of the spectrum. We left DC, and now we're going to Marvel. So, in the realm of Marvel, the question is, which Marvel comic storyline that hasn't been adapted yet could be adapted into the MCU in Phase 4? In the next phase of the MCU, which comic storyline that hasn't been adapted yet could be thrown into the mix moving forward? So we started with Amaru last time, and so we're gonna start with yes, Ethan. No,
Ethan started last time. So
Ethan started last time. We're starting with Amaru. There we go. I got the directions down, just not this way yet. All right. So Amaru, your answer when you're ready.
we know two things about MCU adaptations. First off, we know that the MCU is about the long game. They don't rush the big events. They always big to build a storyline. So you could go with something like House of N or Secret Invasion. But like Stephen McFeely said, the writer of Endgame, those need to be earned. Second thing we know about MCU adaptations is that they don't really ever take the entire comic adaptation. They pick and choose what they want in order to make it look familiar to comic book readers, but also make it something new for the cinematic universe. And when we see Phase 4 perfectly hits those two characteristics. It's a stopgap. It's a stepping stone to something bigger. 3 out of the 5 films in Phase 4 are brand new standalone stories. But what looks to be the main focus is the story that goes from WandaVision into Doctor Strange. And what we need for Phase 4 is a storyline that has that similar stopgap quality that's a stepping stone, which has a Scarlet Witch and Doctor Strange-centric storyline. And that storyline is the one that Marvel editors themselves consider to be the first part of a series of events that eventually leads to House of M, that eventually leads to Secret Invasion, and that is Avengers Disassembled. It has little details that can help you you can put into Falcon and Winter Soldier, Eternals, and into Shang-Chi, and it has the main core that you can put into WandaVision and into Doctor Strange 2. And finally, it gets things that it fits well with Thor and can move you on into Phase 5 beautifully. I will go into those details when we get into our 5 minutes.
Time.
Woo! Man, use it every second of all this. Excellent. All right, Mr. Ethan, sir, your time begins when you're ready.
All right, so Phase 4 is our opportunity to reset. After Endgame, we've lost characters. Characters have gone through such big changes that this is our opportunity for new leaders, for new players, for current characters to step into new roles. And one of those huge roles is Spider-Man. Spider-Man has everything set up for him to be the next big leader of the Avengers. Now he's almost there, but he needs something else. And the storyline I picked is Kraven's Last Hunt. And what he can go through this storyline can finally get Spider-Man to that point of being not just a kid, but a true leader. We've seen him be the kid that needs everyone's approval. He just wants to be an Avenger. He finally gets there. We see what he goes through, losing Tony Stark, and then in Far From Home, he's trying to find his place in the world. How can he trust people? Who can he trust? Loses that trust. And then at the very end, everyone learns who Spider-Man is, right? Enter in Kraven. And like Amaru said, they don't necessarily follow it point for point, but perfectly, he could be this guy that during the blip, right, maybe lost his family, whatever it is, he's out in the woods, he's gone crazy throughout these whole 5 years, whatever it is, he is this man on a mission. He thinks he's the greatest. He can hunt anything. What can he do? There's this kid that has this stature, this status. He's an Avenger. I don't like him. I don't want him. Now I know who he is. I'm coming after him, and I'm going to put him through the ride of his life. And he needs to go through that story to become the Spider-Man we need moving forward into Phase 5.
Ooh. All right. 2 interesting, amazing storylines from the comics. I think every comic book nerd worth his salt knows both of these storylines. And Let's see how they would adapt them into a film. We get 5 minutes, gentlemen. Make us believe.
Nothing Ethan said was wrong. The problem is Spidey isn't already in phase 4, and MCU is going to have enough trouble already because of the Rona moving everything around. You cannot put Spidey in there right now. Disassembled already fits in perfectly with everything the phase 4 already has, as I mentioned before. So little details in Disassembled. It includes a spat with the UN where they're taking away the disputed the Avengers Charter. Falcon, who has a new Wakandan costume because he's the new Cap, is in between a scandal between the Navy and a drug cartel with AIM. And those little details, first off, political conflicts can go into Falcon and Winter Soldier because apparently the U.S. doesn't want Falcon to be Cap, as seeing that U.S. agent is going to be in that show. The AIM ties can go into Shang-Chi and the Legends of the Ten Rings when he faces off against the real Mandarin. And then another detail that I want to talk about is that one big thing that kicks off Wanda's trail into madness is that she sends a Kree attack into Manhattan. We don't know what the Eternals is. All we know is that they're cosmic beings who've been on the Earth for a long time. And what better way to introduce them than have a Kree attack Manhattan? I don't want to take up every time. I got more to say, but go ahead.
Okay, I mean, I would say you mentioned that, I mean, the best storylines are earned, right? And so the storyline of Avengers Disassembled is such a big storyline, but it also has so much turmoil for the team. And, you know, phase 4 is kind of like the new phase 1, right? We have to build up to whatever the finale of phase 4 will be, which, like phase 1, we built up to the Avengers. They were different characters, but they came together to accomplish something. Avengers Disassembled is a group that is just stuck in turmoil, and they are breaking apart. They're disassembled. I don't want to see that in this reset just yet. I think that's a great storyline, but if we would have had Captain America Civil War in phase 1 or phase 2, it wouldn't have felt earned. It wouldn't have felt right because we didn't have enough time to build up to that point and see those characters break apart. We need time for these characters to grow in their own and become a new team before they have that disascension. And that new team needs a new leader. And yes, I understand the schedule, whatever the schedule may be. I'm living in a dream world. This is just what I want to see. I want to see Kraven's last time, and I want to see Spider-Man go through this. If he's out there, right? Everyone knows his secret identity. Not everyone can know Spider-Man's secret identity. That if they went forward with that, that would really take a big hit to who Spider-Man is supposed to be. This gives Marvel that out because a part of that story is Kraven kills him, he beats him, and then Kraven becomes Spider-Man. He dons that, and he acts as if he is Spider-Man, but until Spider-Man beats him, right? So if he does that, if they play with that a little bit, it gives them an out because everybody will see this other Spider-Man, and then people will stop believing this kid, Peter Parker, he can't actually be Spider-Man. This is a way they can weave this into a story to give Spider-Man his secret identity back if it then falls on Kraven as they go through this. And that's really at the heart of Peter Parker. He needs to have that hidden identity because that's such an important part of his character, is balancing the two lives. And he can't do that if everyone knows who he is, like everyone knew that Tony Stark was Iron Man.
All of that is true, but none of it is happening in phase 4. On top of the fact that you have to deal with Sony, on top of that, all of that can be seen in phase 5. You talked about being earned. You talked about Disassembled being in so much turmoil. This is the whole picking and choosing. The central part that we're going to use for Disassembled is the Wanda and Doctor Strange story. The Avengers are kind of already disassembled with Cap being old, Iron Man being gone, and Thor going to wherever he is going to go. What you really want to do is use Disassembled to build up and earn House of M. And the way you're going to do that is with the Strange and Wanda story. So again, in Disassembled, Strange comes back with a warped memory because of Mordo, who we've been looking for since Doctor Strange 1. That's a thing. And then he accuses Wanda of having the actions of madness due to the loss of her children. Children we've seen in the promos, we've seen cribs in the promos for WandaVision, and then he realizes Doctor Strange's whole point is to make sure that he takes down Scarlet Witch because he realizes that she has a high level of ability to warp reality.
One minute.
He needs to take her down before she creates a what? A multiverse of madness. On top of that, the nice button to put everything in order is that the reason that Wanda's brain has gone crazy is because she's mind controlled somebody. So let's take Doctor Strange, which is now the last movie in phase 4. Let's go to a post-credit scene where we see Wanda's everything's all good, all fine, but we realize somebody has been mind controlling Wanda the whole time. And who is it? It's Doctor Doom. Comes Fantastic Four for Phase 5, builds up to everything else when we get the introduction of mutants. We're good.
Okay, so here's the thing. You said that the Avengers are already kind of disassembled. Yes, the old Avengers are disassembled. I don't want to walk into a group that isn't even the Avengers right now. The Avengers aren't even in existence. How can these new Avengers already be disassembled in such a short amount of time? We need more time to get an Avengers to disassemble the current Avengers. My storyline is already in place. It's right there. It's one movie contained in one movie.
Time. That is time.
Whew. Wow. All right. Man. Well, that was the battle. Right now, let's hear the closer. Let's wrap them up. State your case, your final 60 seconds to do that. And we started with Amaru, yes?
Yes.
So we're going to start with Ethan. You both got me blown away. I got to take your 60 seconds to wrap my brain around what's going on, but let's hear these closing. All right, Ethan, when you're ready, sir.
So a lot of points and story points that Amaru laid out need to take place over a lot of separate, different movies. Parts of it needs to be in Falcon Winter Soldier. Part of it needs to be in the WandaVision show, then into the Doctor Strange movie, and drawn out over a lot of different things. And that in and of itself does not lend to let's just jump right into it in phase 4. You can't just walk right into that and have something just take over an entire phase in and of itself. My story arc comes to us in one film. It's one contained story arc, but in that one contained story arc, we get Spider-Man so much growth in his character that he can finally complete the arc from where we saw him when he came into Civil War, wanting Tony Stark's approval, wanting Captain America's approval, just wanting to be a part of the team. He was a kid. When he goes through his own death, the entire world hating him, Kraven donning his suit, literally beating him so badly that he is now Spider-Man, taking that back. He doesn't need anyone's approval. He's now earned everything. He's come back from death itself to don that mask. I am Spider-Man. I can lead this team, not because I want to or because I look up to someone. I am a man that can do this.
Time.
All right. 60 seconds there. Let's hear the second side of the story here. Amaru, when you're ready.
Inputting the storyline into the entire phase is exactly what the MCU does. They play the long game, and it's really only little details in the first part of the MCU, phase 4, that we're really using from Disassembled. And again, we pick and choose. We don't have to choose the disassembled part of Disassembled. We focus on Wanda and Doctor Strange. If you want to focus on a movie for a storyline, we already know WandaVision and Doctor Strange are intertwined. So use those two as your movie to use Disassembled and bring something as a stepping stone to the bigger picture we earned in phase 5, so we can have our mutants, so we can have our Fantastic Four. It can lead into possibly X-Men versus Avengers because Magneto needs to be dealing with Wanda. Mine fits into the phase perfectly where yours has to be put in. Everything needs to be maneuvered around, and I don't see how the Rona is letting that happen. I don't see how Sony's letting that happen. It is way easier to get my parts disassembled in phase 4.
Okay.
All right. That's the time.
Fact check.
All right.
Wait,
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Chris.
Because I looked it up when the argument made that Spider-Man wasn't in phase 4. Yeah, he come out right before Thor's Love and Thunder in 2021. November.
He does not. He does not. If you look at the actual phase 4, Spider-Man is not in there.
Hasn't been. There's been rumors, but not confirmation.
Hasn't been confirmed.
Yeah. All right. But thank you for that, Chris. Okay, so these arguments both. I'll be honest with you. I want to see both these films, and both these films could be in phase 4. That's fine. But we got to pick one. I'm gonna start this one. I mean, Amaru, you pulled my card. You said Dr. Doom. You pulled my card, but I got to keep that unbiased out of my head. I think Ethan really, really nailed it when he talked about before we can see this new team of Avengers disassemble, we got to see them grow, because we haven't had a lot of time for this new group to be a team. So I think The Last Hunt would be a very fascinating story for Spider-Man, given his trials and tribulations. And I think you could add parts of what could be in a continuing storyline with the whole MCU. But I want to see the team grow a little bit before they get knocked around. So I'm going to give my point to Ethan on this one. All right, Mr. Payne, what say you?
Okay, I would love to go through all these points, but I'm just gonna keep it short and sweet. Ethan's gonna get my point here. Amaru, you had the grand task with Avengers Disassembled. You literally painted Phase 4 to me, and I definitely would have loved to have seen it. But when it came to adapting the comic property into the MCU, unfortunately, we just had to keep it simple. And Ethan kept it simple with using Kraven's Last Hunt for Spider-Man. And at the same time, people, ever since Peter Parker's introduction and him being paired with Tony as his mentor and mentee relationship, it's been pretty obvious. It's been pretty apparent to most people they think Spider-Man's going to be the next leader. Ethan's pitch was not only he created a story that can help Peter grow as a person again and also as a leader, but at the same time, depending on Sony, if the deal is going to fall through again, this is a perfect opportunity to whisk Peter Parker away from the MCU and back into their Sony world. I mean, that's how it sounded from Ethan's pitch. But beyond that, Ethan did say, yeah, Kraven can beat him. He'll take over Spider-Man. And then this is the perfect time for Peter to beat him again and once again keep his secret identity. And that's one thing MCU has not been able to maintain very well is secret identities. And Peter Parker could be an example for it. So Ethan does get the point.
All right. So with that, Ethan gets a point, stays out of the knockout range, which is good. And even though, Chris, I mean, your opinion, it matters a little bit in that. Which one would have gotten your point?
Ethan, I think Marvel had hit the storyline had been done before in Spider-Man Far From Home. Maybe I got the point, but Ethan laid out a more concrete story that able to follow and fit. And Marvel was too confusing I never got to understand what the story for the December was about, but Ethan told me the story what it would be about. Marvel brought Far From Home or Homecoming, maybe that point would have that had been done.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. Clean sweep then for Ethan in this one, which means we are going to question 4. All right. We're going to find out from this question, one becomes the victor or if we're going to a speed round. All right. So question number 4 is in the category of Bond, James Bond.
Ooh.
Which of the past Bond actors could appear or cameo in a future Bond film? It's something we haven't really seen before. So which past Bond actor could cameo or appear in a future Bond film? Ethan, we're going to start with your opening. When you're ready, sir.
Yeah, so for me, I mean, the answer was clear and obvious as soon as the question was asked, and it's absolutely Sean Connery. To me, he is the icon. When you think James Bond, it is Sean Connery. He was the first one to do it. People can argue about who did it best, but if you really want to get down to the tone that the movies were going for up until Daniel Craig, I think he did do it the best. I think he knew every portion of what James Bond was supposed to be. He was supposed to be corny and funny, and at the same time, a sex symbol too. And he was supposed to be smooth and cool, and he did all of those things in his very own way. And for him to step in to a new James Bond movie, now I'm assuming in this world, it's a new James Bond actor too. It's not Daniel Craig anymore because we know he's done after this one, right? Which way do you want to go? Do you want to go serious? Do you want to go more lighthearted? Either way, Sean Connery can do that. Why? Because he did do the lighthearted side a lot of the times in his movies, but at the end of the day, he's still Sean Connery, and he does have that gravitas in his way, and he can come in, whether it be funny, whether it be serious, as a mentor, as a leader, or if it's just kind of a wink and a smile at the camera, he can do that in such a way because he was such an icon of the character. When you see Sean Connery, you know that has to be James Bond. That man is bringing back the original, the OG 007 to the screen. However they choose to do it, he can fit in both sides of that tone. I'll concede the rest of my time.
With 2
All
seconds.
right, conceding those 2 seconds. Exactly.
I'll give up the 2 seconds.
Give up the 2 seconds. How chivalrous of you, sir. All right. So we've got Sean Connery versus who? We do not know yet, but Amaru going to let us know whenever you're ready, brother.
When you want to bring somebody back into a series, you want it to be recognizable, but you want it to be more than the Leo meme going, oh, hey, look who they brought back. It's got to be recognizable, but it also has to have substance. And when it comes to James Bond, there may not be any set of actors who are more unequivocally linked to their characters than the 5 men who have played James Bond. And if one were to come back, it can't be just a cameo, but also it cannot feel cheap to have them come back and play somebody other than James Bond. There's only one man who lays in that middle ground. Well, you'll recognize him as a Bond, but then he's going to be acceptable as somebody other than James Bond, and that person is Timothy Dalton. Timothy Dalton is the one that know who he is. He's still acting. You know that he can create a substantive role because he is one of the greater actual actors of the 5 that came in, maybe besides Sean Connery. But my thing about him is not only can he do that, he can bring an audience. He has a huge Comic-Con following, so whether or not it's a new audience or people who do like Bond, he can bring them along. But he is also the one Bond that didn't really get his shot. The shot that he deserved. In the 80s, a lot of people wanted macho and the cheesy. Dalton didn't want to do that. He wanted to bring the acting, and if you bring him back, he can be somebody other than Bond and bring gravitas.
And time.
Whew. And he did not give up 2 seconds. He used all the seconds.
This is
all right. This is going to be interesting. Very interesting battle, gentlemen. And I know you're both up for it. So the time begins. Whoever begins first.
So if you want to talk about in the world of Bond, someone to bring people back to the series, nobody's going to do that more than Sean Connery, bar none. Bond fans, if they see Sean Connery, they are going to go. And here's the issue with Timothy Dalton in terms of recognizable and, you instantly associate him with Bond. They tried to move away from the cheesy, right? They tried to go that way with his 2 movies. They tried that more serious tone that they've definitely leaned into with Daniel Craig. And what did they do? They completely scrapped it. There wasn't a Bond movie for years because those 2 movies are so forgettable. They are so forgotten. And they went to Pierce Brosnan, who really pulls more. I mean, he's somewhere in between Roger Moore and Sean Connery, right? So they went back to the old style of things after a long gap because the 2 movies that Timothy Dalton did, Bond fans were just like, nah, man, we don't want this. And it's not that tone is impossible because we've seen massive success in that tone with Daniel Craig. It just took the right person to do it. And at the end of the day, Timothy Dalton wasn't that right person because he didn't grab any one portion of the Bond character and run with it. Sean Connery grabbed every portion of the Bond character and ran with it. Pierce Brosnan, more suave, more smooth. Roger Moore, more cheesy, but you got to grab some part of it. And Timothy Dalton didn't do that. That's why those 2 movies are pushed off to the side. And then there's George Lazenby, who just was a poor man Sean Connery, but that's fine. But that's the thing. He didn't grab people in that way.
That is exactly why Dalton is perfect to come back now. Now, first and foremost, I'm going to get the quick thing out of the way with Sean Connery. How old is he? How much does he want to act? How much can he actually do in a movie? Physically past a quick cameo. I don't want Sean Connery coming in just as a cameo. Yes, everybody will go crazy, but they'll go crazy for a quick second and then it'll be done. Because not only am I worried he's going to be able to do that, but maybe he does do that. You're risking going to the territory of Sean Connery is Bond. Sean Connery is Bond and nobody else. I don't want him to be in a Bond movie and play anything other than James Bond. You said it. Craig's Bond are serious. Craig Bond takes more of the tone of the actual books, and people are ready for that now. Timothy Dalton didn't get his chance to do that in the 80s. Give him the chance to do that now. He will perfectly build off of what Daniel Craig's Bonds have put together now for the new one, bring in that serious tone, bring in that gravitas that Sean Connery has, but he does not run the risk of people not wanting to see him. They want to see him. What's better than a redemption story? They want to see him being redeemed. They want to see somebody who is true to Fleming's original character in Bond, which it's what he was doing in the 80s, but they didn't want that. It is the perfect time to do that now because everything is set up for him to come in and not be Bond, but be somebody who can relate to the new Bond, relate to the more seriousness, to the subtlety that the new Bond has and that Dalton tried to bring before. But now he can bring in a different character without people saying, oh, he was Bond, he can't be anybody else. You can't do that with Sean Connery.
Here's the thing. If Sean Connery's in a Bond movie, I don't want him to play someone other than Bond. I agree with you that. And in my scenario, he doesn't have to be. There's been rumors going around for years that James Bond is a moniker, right? That it's just something, it's a title just like 007. What if they brought him back in that way? If he was a mentor for the new Bond? Someone walks in, he's looking for some old case file, whatever it is. He finds this old man and he introduces himself as Bond, James Bond. And you have that moment where Sean Connery goes, "You're Bond? No, I'm Bond." Just you have that interaction with them, that would set the place on fire. And then if he gave him that lesson, there's a scene in Skyfall where Daniel Craig's character goes back to his old home, and there's that older man, that's that caretaker. They had talked about that being Sean Connery.
1 minute.
What if Sean Connery played that role? That would have been perfect if he would have inserted himself in that way and helped out the new James Bond. You can do that in this way and have him be that. And I think that nobody that has played James Bond can be in a James Bond movie without doing that, because it wouldn't make sense, especially if it was Timothy Dalton, who was in 2 movies that people forget about. If he walks on screen, people are going to be like, wasn't he James Bond before? And then when he's not James Bond, I don't think it makes sense. I don't think anybody that previously was coming on doing something else makes any kind of sense. What makes perfect sense is old man Sean Connery instilling some wisdom in the new Bond, teaching him a couple tricks with that wink and that smile, but also that seriousness, because while the old movies that Sean Connery was in did have that tongue-in-cheek style, he did have some serious moments. There were some very adult moments in those films that did get left out once Roger Moore became Bond.
I'm going to wait.
Yeah. Sorry, that was a weird.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
Cut it off.
That's all right. All right. Whew. It's interesting. Fascinating. You guys. Oh, all right. Not going to be easy. So let's see how we close this out. So since Ethan began, Amaru, you're going to close this out. Give us your 60 seconds here, your case closing when you're ready.
Everything that worked for Sean Connery does work for him, but it also would work for Timothy Dalton. But Timothy Dalton has the ability to do much more than Sean Connery has. Physically, he could play that, but he could also play a villain because he has the acting chops that Sean Connery has. He has the recognizability. He is able to have a redemption, to do something that so many people of that age, the book readers who wanted to see that subtlety, wanted to see Dalton actually do it, they're going to come back and want to see him do what he wasn't allowed to do before, and do it at a much bigger rate, much more options than what Sean Connery would be able to do. Yes, that wink would be there. Yes, all that. But Timothy Dalton can do the exact same thing. I don't think Bond could be you could give him the option to be a villain. Dalton could be a villain. Dalton could be a mentor. Dalton can be anything you want him to be, where Sean Connery can only play the old man. And how long can he actually play that old man?
Time.
Ooh. All right. A full 60 right there. All right. Ethan, sir, you're ready.
I don't need the person coming back to be physical in the film, to be a physical presence in the film. I want whoever is playing James Bond to be the most physical presence in the film. The guy that comes back, I want him to be an emotional presence. I want him to be on screen and for me to be like, yes, they brought back James Bond. And if you're going to pick anybody to bring back James Bond, it's Sean Connery, the most iconic Bond, the guy that started it, the guy that set the tone for everyone else. And you kept saying Timothy Dalton didn't get his chance. He got 2 chances. He made 2 films, and people wanted no part of that, and it tanked the series for almost a decade. It was 8 years later before they finally were like, okay, we can go back into this. And what did they do? They went the exact opposite. They went Pierce Brosnan, suave, cool, safe. We're not going to do anything crazy. We're not going to go down that same route again. It was 20 years later when they finally had the bravery to give Daniel Craig that tone from the books, because Timothy Dalton had his chance and he simply failed. Sean Connery never failed. He started it and was perfect.
Whew. And another full 60. All right. Wow. 2 compelling arguments, 2 amazing choices. We're going to start with you, Mr. Payne.
Yeah.
What say you, sir?
Okay. I'll list up my reasons later. Point is going to Amaru. I did enjoy what Ethan was talking about, bringing Sean Connery back. One of the biggest hits he had against him was what Amaru brought up. Would Sean Connery want to come back to acting, or how much would he be able to do? And then he did bring up that little tidbit about the caretaker in Skyfall that they wanted Connery for the role. So there has been the studios has shown they want to bring Connery back. Just moving later on, but Amaru brought up some more stronger points with Dalton coming back. Not just referring to Dalton mirroring Craig a little bit, but at the same time, Dalton is, out of most of the Bond actors outside of Pierce Brosnan, which they didn't mention, is still acting currently. He has a lot of recent filmography work onto him, so people would recognize him. And if I was arguing for Dalton, I would have said bringing Dalton onto Bond would get people interested in wanting to check out his films even more. But none of them brought that point up. But it was the fact that we saw the same mirroring that Dalton was on his Bond movies, being very gritty and very serious as to Craig's were. And at the same time, I'm not sure he did say more options for Dalton than just coming back as a James Bond, as Ethan did for Sean Connery. So Amaru got the point.
All right. That's 1 for Amaru. Mr. Diaz, what say you, sir?
Yeah, I went back and forth, and then Ryan said something I totally agree. Amaru. I think Ethan dig up a whole right when he mentioned the Skyfall thing, because they offered to Sean Connery and he turned it down. Amaru brought working on what Dalton could do outside of just playing Bond again with Bourne, be a mentor, everything. And we've seen it before. And it came down to that one side tip about Skyfall that made me give my point to Amaru.
All right. And so with that, Amaru gets the point. My opinion, and like The Rock said to me many years ago, it doesn't matter what you think. But I would have gone with Ethan, actually. I would have went with Ethan on it. But, because Ethan, I thought, brought up a lot of things that Amaru threw a lot at Ethan, but Ethan came back with a counterpoint, and I think made the stronger argument. But again, doesn't matter what I think. Mr. Payne and Mr. Diaz have already decided that Amaru gets the point. So your winner for this edition of Nerd Fights is Rubert himself. Excellent work, but both incredible arguments, incredible fighters over here. Let's go to our interviews, and let's go with Ethan first. He came up just a hair short, man, of this one. But how you feeling? You did really well. How you feeling?
Yeah, it's fun to do it. I'd say that, I'm in here with the 2 guys I've had the most fun competing against. That's, you and Amaru's right there with you. So, it's a lot more fun when it's just guys having fun talking about what they enjoy talking about instead of just like getting angry at each other. So it's always an entertaining time, and I would do it again with Amaru in a heartbeat.
Excellent. All right, Amaru, man, this was a hard fight for you, but you came out on top. How you feeling, sir?
I am relieved. Ethan, you scared me, man. You scared the crap out of me because all 4 of these debates could have gone either way. I personally thought I was a little closer on the MCU one, on the Marvel one, but still, that shows how much I didn't think I was going to get swept on that at all, and I did. Ethan, you scared me, and you mentioned wanting to do it again. We're right back at it in Sports Brawl pretty soon, so we get to go right back at each other. I'm relieved. And I feel good because if I can at least show that I have the ability to beat Ethan, I feel like I can beat anybody. Because I think Ethan, off of this one and the Sports Brawl I've seen him do, he's going to be one of the top. He's going to be going for championships. He really is. And this makes me more scared for the Sports Brawl that we're going to have fairly soon. But I'm feeling good. This was a lot of fun. Definitely a lot of fun, and I can't wait, man. I can't wait till we do this again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Yeah, both of you guys really a heck of a job. Excellent arguments, entertaining to the end. Chris, you got anything, final words for these gentlemen?
No, this is fun. I thought they were very fun and kind of made me now want to get into this when it's ever an opportunity. And this is my favorite type of debate, actually, now.
Excellent. Mr. Payne, sir, any final words?
God, this was probably one of the closest nerd fights I've ever had to judge. Oh my God. I mean, to be honest, I've said this before in other matches. There are certain players, after judging a match, I'd be kind of afraid to fight up against. And if I ever do get a nerd fight match again, I would definitely be terrified if I saw Amaru or Ethan's name come up in the chat, other than being judges. I mean, if they're judges, okay, cool. But if they're my opponents, I have to come with everything here. But yeah, you guys did fantastic. I really can't wait to see what Sports Brawl is going to be like for the both of you. But do not let yourself be discouraged, Ethan. It could take another opportunity against somebody else in nerd fights to climb back up again. And tomorrow, holy shit. Oh, Jesus Christ. I'm going to make sure my brain's not broken the next time I judge both of your matches.
That's true. If anything you both take away from this, just know that both of you broke Mr. Payne. You broke his brain, and that is not an easy thing to do. All right. This was a lot of fun. I was super excited to be hosting this, asking these questions, and just entertained all around. So for Mr. Diaz, for Mr. Payne, push up your glasses right where the tape is, okay? Get nerdy with it, because if you're a nerd, you gonna fight. All right.